Hey guys, my name is Carlos and today we're going to be going over long exposure. Pretty much what long exposure is when you leave your shutter open for more than half a second, allowing more light to come into your image sensor. If you have anything in your image that's moving, it gives them a nice blur effect. We're here in San Pedro, we're looking at a sunset, we're looking at the Vincent Thomas Bridge. We're going to try to snap a shot in about 20 minutes. It's going to get dark in around 20 minutes. And we're going to go over the settings, we're going to go over the equipment I'm using, and we're going to see the results that we get by practicing long exposure. The camera I'm using today is the Nikon D5100. I'm going to be using a 70 to 300 millimeter lens. That way I can zoom in as much as possible into the bridge, get those nice colors out. And you want to make sure you have a tripod. You want to make sure you have somewhere where your camera is nice and steady. That way your image comes out crispy clear. We're going to go over 3 basic steps. The first step, composition. You want to make sure whatever it is that you're taking a photo of is set where you want it. As you guys can see, we have the bridge. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pushing the bridge off to the side. I don't want it right smack in the middle. Symmetry in photography can be boring at times. You don't want something right in the middle, unless you're looking at something, either amazing or breathtaking. Then yeah, maybe that'll work. But what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be moving over the bridge to the side of the image. We're going to work on our composition, make sure that we get a nice view of the port as well. And let's get right into it. So let's position our camera. Alright you guys, we have everything set up here. We have our bridge off to the side. We have view of the cranes here, and then we're having that nice flow of color. Now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna wait for the sun to set completely, and we're gonna snap a shot. There isn't much movement, as you guys may notice, on the bridge. There's a slight bit of cars going back and forth, but not all of them have their lights on at the moment. So we're not gonna get that full effect we want. So now we have to play the waiting game. Now we're just gonna wait, be patient. Shouldn't take more than 15-20 minutes, and we should get right back into it. Alright you guys, it's dark, just how we want it. Let's move on in. Now what I didn't go over earlier, I'm going to go over it right now. I'm shooting in manual mode at the moment. I'm shooting full manual. Another setting you can use is shutter speed priority. Now the only reason why I'm not using shutter speed priority, and take a look at this, I'll show you guys right now. Now as you guys can see, when I move the shutter speed, it's adjusting the f-stop for me. I'm not moving the f-stop, but it does it on its own. So pretty much the only thing I'm controlling is the shutter speed. Now I want full control of the camera. I want to make sure I'm setting everything up. I'm setting the ISO, I'm setting the f-stop, I'm setting the shutter speed. So that's why I prefer to shoot in manual mode myself. Now we're gonna move on here. Let's go into our shutter speed. Let's bring our shutter up to 13 seconds. We're gonna leave our f-stop at 20, our ISO at 100. And another thing I'm gonna do, you guys can see here, I'll show you guys. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into the white balance. Where is the white balance? Did I miss it? There it is. And I'm gonna switch to incandescent right there. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna give it a nice pink color to it. So we're gonna work with that there. Let's get right into it. We have our settings set. Let's switch to our live view, and let's go in 3, 2, 1. And look at that, we got nice tone in the background. Let's zoom in into this image. We got a nice view of the bridge. We got the lights coming down, the lights going up. See, so it's not bad, pretty good. Now, if we work with the white balance again, let's go right back into it. Let me show you guys something. Work with it from here. Let's go to cloudy. Now let's see the different results. It's starting to look a little bit more red. Let's snap this shot, and we're gonna compare both images to see what we get. The more you do with your camera, that's the reason why you want to shoot in manual mode. The more you do with your camera, the less you have to do in post-processing. Nice. That blue sky we saw in the back, no more. Seems like the white balance worked opposite of what I said. Earlier I said I wanted a nice purple tone. Now it gave it to me with a different white balance. But check that out. Blue. Starting to give it a more natural color and a more different style effect. All right. All right, you guys. So for the end of this, what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna go over a quick recap of everything we did. So we worked with our manual mode. We wanted a full control of our camera. We worked with our shutter speed. Remember, the more you leave your shutter open, the more light you can collect. Your f-stop. F-stop is the size of pretty much the size of like the door you want the light to come in. If you want a small f-stop, then you bring the number up really high, and as you guys can see here, that's the size of the opening. That's the light's coming in through. So it balances out. We have a high shutter speed and a high f-stop, then it balances out. Now, if we want to make the opening bigger, we bring it down, and as you guys can see, we have now a really big opening. We have as much light coming in. And our bar is over towards the right side. So, it just depends on how you want to shoot. It's your taste, it's your camera, it's your photograph. There isn't a specific rule that you have to shoot like this to get the image that you want. If you feel comfortable shooting at a high f-stop, at a low shutter speed, at a high shutter speed, with a high ISO, with the low ISO, as long as you get the results you want, you'll be getting, you'll feel satisfied with your work. So the more I ramble on, it got darker. So let's work with one more shot before we finish this small tutorial here. We're gonna leave our shutter open for 50 seconds. We're gonna bring our f-stop down to, let's say 10. That should be fine. Now, as you guys can see, remember what I said, it's way overexposed, but that's fine by me. Why? Because it's really dark. Let's snap this shot. Not bad, pretty good result. Now we're gonna do one last thing. We're gonna zoom in. We're gonna zoom in into that bridge. We're gonna get those lights. We're gonna get the beauty of the bridge itself. All right, we have the bridge there, and we're gonna snap a shot. We should be able to see the full effect here. Let's do it in 3, 2, 1. We had the same settings. We didn't tamper anything. We left the settings as is. The result should be the same, but now our focus is the bridge itself. We didn't have, a bigger landscape where we had the cranes in. Now we're just focusing on the bridge. And there's our result. Let's zoom in to check it out. You see those lights. Now, what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna go over what I do in post-process, how I tamper with my photos, how I give them those final touches. So let's go into if pretty much when you post-process, you work with whatever software you have. Either you can work with Photoshop Raw, Photoshop itself, or you can work with Lightroom, whichever one you feel more comfortable with, whichever software you have the more control over, work with that. If you like your photo as it came out straight out of your camera, then you can leave it as is. So let's get right into our post-processing part. So we can see the full image of the bridge and what we're gonna work with. All right, so I was gonna use Lightroom. For some reason, my Lightroom didn't want to open, so we're just gonna work with Photoshop Raw here. And what we're gonna do is let's start working with this image. All right, let's begin with our exposure. I'm gonna bump the exposure just a tad bit. 0.20 should work fine. Now the contrast, contrast should be something to work with. That's a tiny bit of contrast to it. Now, as you guys can see in this part of the image, it is way overexposed, way too much. You can barely see the details on those lines. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring my highlights down. Bring my highlights all the way down. And as you can see, it made a total different effect in the photo. Now I can see the streak of lights coming in, coming down. So let's move up. I want to bump up my clarity just to 15, just a tad bit more should work fine. Our shadows up to 15. Now, if you guys are working with Lightroom, this is pretty much the exact same thing. If you guys are working with Lightroom, all you just work on your develop tab, and you guys can find these same exact settings, same exact buttons, and you guys can work with. So let's move up to our detail. I'm going to sharpen it up a bit to 75 should be fine. 75 and noise reduction to 50. Take away some noise off the photo itself. Then let's move on to our next tab, our split tonings. I'm going to add 25 of hue. and I'm going to work with 70 for the saturation. Now, as you guys can see, now it gave me that nice, cool tone in the background. Pretty much took away the, as you guys can see there, the blue, and it gave it a more, I guess, pink, you can say. And let's, another thing I like to do is I like to add a vignette. I'm going to put this to 70, 75. Let's do 75. And I'm going to bring the midtone all the way down. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to bring the focus right to the center of the image, right where I want them to look. It's going to take away a little bit of the brightness here on the sides. It's going to brighten up the middle. That way it keeps my audience looking where I want them to look. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to bump up the exposure just a tad bit more to brighten it up a bit. And as you guys can see, I think everything's pretty much set. I'm going to bring down the temperature to just a tiny bit more. Temperature tiny bit more. Bring this down. Bring the tint down to 30. Now, pretty much the temperature dial, you can pretty much work with it on your own. If you want a more cool effect, you bring it down. If you want a more warm effect, you can just bump it right back up. For me, this is pretty much it. This is pretty much what I do to my images. Basic stuff, basic editing, basic post-processing stuff that you can do to your photos. We're going to look at a little before and after. Let's open the image up in Photoshop. Now let's just straighten up the bridge just a tiny bit more. And let's see, I think that was the wrong way to straighten it up. There we go, this way. And I think we're working with it just fine right there. It's kind of hard to look at. There we go, perfect. Right there, we let it go. I think that's straight. Let's hit that return tab. And we're good. And this is our image. This is our final image. I hope you guys enjoyed this little tutorial. Feel free to check out my Instagram, check out my blog of photos if you guys want to check out more work. And I hope you guys were able to get some basic tips out of this little tutorial to improve your long exposure photography. My name was Carlos, and I'll see you guys soon.